We're going to start World War I today. And the thing I want you to remember about World War I is the fact that the United States didn't jump right in the middle of this thing. It took us quite a while actually to get into it, okay? And we'll get into that later. But our subtopic for today is Europe enters into a war. Now, is anybody in here, can you think about the last time that Europe was involved in a major war? What was the last time that we talked about it? What was the last time they were involved in a major war? No, we're talking about, this is not all together, but at this time in history we're at 1914. When was the last time Europe was involved in a major war?
So France?
No.
Was it Spanish? French Revolution?
No, because that's one country. Europe. Country in Europe. It's in a major war. You can't count. It's a good guess, but that doesn't count. That lasted a summer.
French Revolution?
No. We were involved in it. The United States was involved in it with someone in Europe.
War of 1812.
War of 1812. Very good. So when did the War of 1812 end? 1815. So from 1815 to 1914, there had not been any major conflict involving a European country. That was almost 100 years. So for 99 years, between 1850 and the end of the War of 1812 and 1914, there had been no major conflict involving a European country. 99 years of peace. Well, that came to an end in the summer of 1914. And in the summer of 1914, 5 major European countries went to war. So for 99 years, between 1815 and 1914, Europe had not experienced a major war. But however, that ended in the summer of 1914 when 5 major European countries went to war. Now this worried people because during that 99 year of lax, modern technology didn't stand still. And all of a sudden in the summer of 1914, because of modern technology, the ability of one human being to kill another human being got massive because of technology. And I'm going to give you 8 examples, or maybe you can come up with them, 8 examples of what you might think was the change in technology concerning weaponry that would have given human beings a much easier chance to kill one another than way back in 1850. Okay, anybody raise your hand if you have an idea of what I might be talking about. What's some major technology that was developed in those 99 years that gave human beings enhanced ability to kill each other?
Machine gun.
Machine gun, that's very good. Machine gun, automatic weapons. Okay, automatic weapons, but machine guns in particular. Daniel?
What about like more accurate guns, like sniper rifles or something?
Not so much. No, not so much. But machine guns are automatic weapons. Machine guns are absolutely right. Anybody else have a guess what we developed in that time, or anybody? Dylan?
Yeah, chemical weapons.
That's right. Poison gases at this time. Poison gases had been developed. Chemical weapons, but specifically poison gases. How about another one that might have been developed between that time?
Was it grenades?
Hand grenades. Very good. Hand grenades. So we have poison gases. We have machine guns. We have hand grenades. What else? If you think about watching war movies or whatever might help you. What else was developed during that 99 years? What? Tanks. Very good. Tanks. Did you have a different one, Dylan?
Artillery.
What type of artillery?
Mortar. Howitzer.
Long-range artillery. That's right. My hometown of Forsyth, Montana, I remember this since I was born, or since I could remember. Right on the courthouse lawn is a cannon, a long-range artillery cannon from World War I. Been there 60 years, or more probably. It was there before I was born. Okay, so long-range artillery. So poison gases, tanks, machine guns, long-range artillery, hand grenades. What else, maybe? Yeah. Nope. We're done with guns. What? Well, that might be dropped from airplanes. Airplanes. Poison gases. Tanks, airplanes, machine guns, long-range artillery, hand grenades. Yeah?
Submarine?
Yes, nobody gets that. Submarines. Submarine? Submarine.
Oh.
We're missing one nobody gets. You saw a lot more of them in World War II. And they were kind of unconventional weapons that you might not think that someone might use, but they used them a ton.
Oh, are they bayonets?
No, no. Something they used to flush out the enemy in many cases. What? Flamethrowers. Very good. Flamethrowers. You saw many more in World War II. Basically what the soldier did, there was a sign, put a tank of propane or gas on their back and shot flames into areas in which enemy might be hiding, especially on places like Normandy and D-Day. But what happens if a bullet hits them? That's the end of you because it explodes, okay? So we got them all, that's great. Those are some of the more important examples of how modern technology enhanced the ability of one human to kill another. Now, because of the effectiveness of these types of weapons, soldiers on both sides dug trenches to protect themselves. And a lot of the battles in the early part of World War I involved what we know today as trench warfare. This just happens to be an old U.S. World War I trench shovel. Just about every soldier had one of these in their backpack back here to dig trenches. Pretty good shape for that old, is it not? I'll pass around, don't get anybody with it. Anyway, there's your World War I trench shovel. Okay? Now, when we talk about the airplane, at this time in history, the airplane was not very fast or not very maneuverable, which made the airplane very vulnerable. So what airplanes were used for in World War I were much different than World War II and wars following that. What were the two things that they would use planes in World War I for? Scouting. What? Observation. Very good. Observation. Scouting or observation. Another thing they would use them for, but it wasn't like you think of in modern, is they dropped bombs. But how many did they drop at a time? Like one. They would fly over and drop one. And that was kind of risky. So because airplanes were a bit vulnerable, because they weren't very fast and they weren't very maneuverable at that time, they basically served as observation and as dropping single bombs. Now, I got to tell you, they did attempt to mount machine guns on these airplanes, but the effectiveness wasn't that good. Does anybody want to guess why? No, good guess. Yeah, they didn't have synchronized machine guns, and so they would do good until they shot their own propeller off. And then they would end up nose diving and killing crew. So many self-inflicted casualties during the course of the war occurred when airplanes mounted with machine guns did pretty well till they shot off their own propellers, and then they were done. So the concept of synchronization of your machine guns to fire between the propeller blades had not been perfected in World War I. Okay, that'll take us to our next burning question. How did these 5 European nations get going at each other in war? Which is our next subtopic, European alliances and the, quote, spark that helped set off a war in Europe. European alliances and the, quote, spark that helped set off the war in Europe. Did you know that one little single event, or spark, resulted in World War I in which millions of people lost their lives? One little event, and we'll tell you that in a minute. But first of all, we'll talk about European alliances. Well, in June of 1914, the 5 most powerful European countries arranged themselves into competing alliances. In June of 1914, the 5 most powerful countries in Europe aligned themselves in competing alliances.
What might be a simplistic thought for what a competing alliance is?
What? Two teams. Two teams. So we have, we play POW and soccer. Those are two competing alliances. POW's aligned with the group of kids that make up their team, and Warland's aligned with the group of kids that make up their team. The two alliances, first was called the Triple Alliance. And the countries that belonged to the Triple Alliance were Germany and this country, although it was kind of two countries at that time, Austria-Hungary. So the two countries that made up the Triple Alliance were Germany and Austria-Hungary. Europe, the map of Europe was much different in 1914 than it is now. Way different. Austria-Hungary was a big-time country there that encompassed a lot of the central part of Europe. Germany and Austria-Hungary were members of the Triple Alliance. The other alliance was called the Triple Entente. That's not how it's spelled, but that's how it's pronounced. The Triple Entente. Who wants to guess who was in that alliance? Three separate countries. France.
Italy.
Nope, good guess. Great Britain, and ironically, Russia. France, Great Britain, and Russia made up the Triple Entente. Now, why would that be a cause for a major world war in Europe? So, if Daniel and Aisha and Andy are the Triple Alliance, okay, and Izzy and Luke and Mackenzie are the Triple Entente. If Daniel gets into a fist fight with Luke, how's that going to affect all the other people? You're aligned with, even though you might not dislike Luke, and maybe you don't have any differences with Luke, Aisha, you're going to jump on his back while Daniel gives him a couple of uppercuts while you kick him in the knee. And then you're going to run over and grab Daniel by the hair, and then you're going to grab Andy behind the throat and pull her off. Even though you might not dislike each other, two people started it. So the point is, the danger of an alliance is because if one country gets involved in a conflict, all the other countries then become involved because you're aligned with them. Okay? So this will make sense in a minute. Now, the alliances were part of the problem that started World War I. But the spark that set it off happened on June 28th of 1914. The spark that set it off happened on June 28th of 1914. Now, this will be a little confusing as I lecture it, so I'll repeat it many times so don't let your head explode. Okay? Here's what happened on June 28th of 1914. The Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Bosnia and the Duchess, who is his wife, were riding in an open automobile through the streets of Sarajevo, which was the capital city of Bosnia. Okay, I'll repeat it. It's confusing. On June 28, 1914, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Bosnia and his wife, the Duchess, were riding in an open automobile through the streets of Sarajevo, which was the capital of Bosnia. I'll repeat that again. On June 28th of 1914, the Archduke of Bosnia, Franz Ferdinand, and his wife, the Duchess, were riding in an open automobile through the streets of Sarajevo, which was the capital city of Bosnia. You know what Bosnia was? A country that was a province of Austria-Hungary. What does that mean? If Bosnia is a province of Austria-Hungary. Wyoming is a province of what? United States of America.
So
So-
state.
Well, it's a province because it really isn't totally part of it, like organized like now. So Bosnia was definitely under the rule of Austria-Hungary, and it was a province of that country, part of that country. So let me repeat that again. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Bosnia, which is a province of Austria-Hungary, and his wife, the Duchess, were riding in an open automobile through the streets of Sarajevo, which was the capital city of Bosnia. Now these are royalty, right? The Archduke and the Duchess are Bosnian royalty, like king and queen, right? Okay? And they're riding through these streets. As they're doing this, a 19-year-old by the name of Gavrilo Princip rushes towards the automobile, fires his revolver, hitting both the Archduke and his wife, the Duchess. So as this car is riding through the streets of Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, a 19-year-old by the name of Gavrilo Princip rushes towards the open automobile, fires his revolver, hitting both the Archduke and the Duchess, his wife. Duchess Sophie was fatally wounded in the abdomen, which means she died later. And the Archduke was killed with a shot in the neck. So Gavrilo Princip shoots both the Archduke and the Duchess as they're in an open automobile going through the streets of Sarajevo. The Duchess is hit in the abdomen, later dies. The Duke is hit in the neck and dies nearly immediately. Ironically, on the couple's 14th wedding anniversary. So this really looks bad all the way around. So, I'm going to go back and make sure we got this figured out. On June 28th of 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Bosnia, which was a province of Austria-Hungary, and his wife, the Duchess, were riding in an open automobile. The Bosnian royalty were riding through the streets of Sarajevo, the capital city of Bosnia, when suddenly a 19-year-old by the name of Gavrilo Princip rushed towards the open automobile and fired a revolver, hitting both the Archduke and his wife. The Duchess, Sophie, was fatally wounded in the abdomen, and the Archduke was killed with a shot in the neck. Ironically, on the royal couple's 14th anniversary. Gavrilo Princip turned the gun on himself in an attempt to have a kind of like a double murder-suicide, but police wrestled him to the ground and arrested him before he could pull the trigger. So Princip went to turn the gun on himself, but he was tackled to the ground by police who took him into custody. Now, Princip was later tried for murder and convicted of murder, but he was not given the death sentence, which was normal for that type of thing. Why? What?
Sent him to,
Insane asylum?
North Russia.
No. Why didn't they sentence him to death? No. He was too young. You had to be 21 to be sentenced to death at that time by law. And so he was spared the death sentence as a capital punishment because underage offenders, it was illegal to put him to death, and he was just 19. He goes to prison and actually dies 4 years later. Now, I'm going to go on here, then I'm going to explain to you something kind of interesting. Gavrilo Princip was considered a Bosnian nationalist. And the gun that he used to kill the Archduke and the Duchess were given to him by revolutionists in Serbia. So Gavrilo Princip was a Bosnian, and the weapon that he used to kill the Archduke and the Duchess was given to him by revolutionists from Serbia. And you're thinking to yourself, so? Serbia was a country that was under Austria-Hungarian rule, but they weren't compliant, which means what? They didn't do what they were told. So was Gavrilo Princip sympathetic with the people of Serbia who were not compliant with Austria-Hungary and were basically revolutionists? Yes. So how did Austria-Hungary see this assassination? What did they view it as? What? Terrorism, treason, etc. So here's a country of Serbia who supplied the weapon, who the assassin is sympathetic to. What is Austria-Hungary's reaction going to be to Serbia? What are they going to do as a result of this assassination? Kind of. They're going to, they don't declare war on them because they're part of their government. They're simply going to invade Serbia with their military and show them who's boss. Now, the point